Welcome back to another episode of One Winning Pod. We're here to talk about the upcoming game against the New England Patriots. Certainly a bounce-back game, one that the Ravens are looking forward to, and looking forward to kind of remove that taste of their mouth from that horrid fourth-quarter collapse against the Dolphins at home. Yeah, it's I don't know about you guys, but for me, just the day after that game, that was a little rough. Just very disappointing. Obviously, we talked about it in depth last episode, but I'm excited for this game just to turn the page, get a little bit better, and hopefully come out with a win.
Well, at least a day after we weren't surrounded by, screaming Miami fans celebrating their Super Bowl win. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's so crazy. Like, I think it used to sting me more when I was younger, but still, I'll get up in the morning the day after the Ravens have a disappointing loss, and you just feel a little bit of a weight, a little bit of a heaviness, a little bit of an upset, disappointment, whatever. It's like the first thing that hits you, and all losses are bad, and I feel like the Ravens kind of have a bit of a annual tradition where one of these first three games in September is a letdown, but for the Ravens to let this one down in as dramatic fashion as they did kind of made it sting a little more than if, I don't know, just say the Ravens went out and lost like last year, a scuffled 19-16 defensive struggle. So the Ravens will be heading to New England. This is a very different Patriots team than what we've been accustomed to. This will be the first time the Ravens will be playing the Patriots when Tom Brady is not under center since 2000, I believe. It was the 1999 season, but the very last game of that year, so technically 2000. So, yeah, that's interesting because for a while this was a matchup that was circled on the calendar. Because it was the Ravens' defaulted defense against Tom Brady, and now that this matchup is different. So interesting in that regard, but yeah, I guess we'll get into this team. It's like I said, this is certainly a very different Patriots team than what we're used to seeing from these guys.
You're right, Peter. This is a team that I always consider to be the Ravens' number one rival, just because they seem to be more of a thorn in our side in critical moments than, let's say, even the Steelers were. Steelers obviously a top rival as well, but for a while there, it was like the Patriots hate was next level. And now, without Brady there, without that kind of dynasty going on, they're just another team. But I will say, after the 2000 game, or after the 2020 game, big letdown game, obviously weather was a huge influence in that game. I'm looking for the Ravens to bounce back. I don't want to be disappointed like that again. I would say, in a way, that was one of the more disappointing games since this last weekend. There have been others between now and then, but I remember being disappointed after that loss and being like, what the heck? Like, we had that game in our hands. Like, that was ridiculous. So, looking for the Ravens to establish themselves again, kind of get a third data point so we can really get a trend of what's going on with this team. And I was a little disappointed in myself after the last episode because there was a couple other positives I wanted to talk about the team that kind of got lost and forgotten in the shuffle, and we'll bring them up today when we're talking about kind of the keys of this game. And just looking for the team to be a better version of themselves this week than they were last week. Keep growing, keep improving, and obviously get a W because we can't give too many of those lost tokens out. Remember that? Bringing back that analogy.
I never forget the lost tokens. Ever since Alec brought that up in 2019, I'm like, man, it's just like, you got those that bag of old Chuck E. Cheese coins in your back bookshelf somewhere, and you're like, man, I only got 6 more of these I can use on the pinball machine, right? So you gotta use them wisely and make sure that you don't use them all up, because then you're out.
Oh, man.
Such a millennial analogy showing your age here. Nobody uses tokens anymore. Are you kidding me?
Right, exactly. Oh, man. Does Chuck E. Cheese even exist anymore? Or is that...
It still does. It still does. Yeah. There's one in the festival. Yeah, it's been there forever. I don't know. I think they keep resetting the scores for the arcade games though, because I'm pretty sure my friend way back in the day had all the top 5 scores of the Star Wars game. I don't even know if they have that game anymore.
Oh man. But you know what doesn't exist anymore, which is a big bummer, is Jeepers. Like, did you guys ever go to a Jeepers birthday party as a kid?
Oh yeah.
I think we went to the same one sometime, Peter. Yeah.
We did, didn't we? Yeah. Jeepers was the best, man, because it was Chuck E.
And the roller
Cheese.
coaster.
It had the roller coaster. It had the bumper cars. It had like a ball pit jungle gym that had like the zip line. And also, fun fact about Jeepers, unlike Chuck E. Cheese, if there was a Ravens game, Jeepers would play it.
Nice.
So Jeepers, I mean, Chuck E. Cheese is great, but Jeepers was the king of birthday places, and it's such a shame that they went under. Anyways, we're here to talk about the Patriots as much as we'd love to reminisce about all the times we spent crawling around in German-infested money grabs with animatronic mice. The Patriots, the Ravens. Yeah, let's get into these keys of the game that Alex talking about. And I'm just going to go right off on Alex's list because I think this first one is key. And we talked about it. The first two games of this season, the run game just hasn't been there. Whether it's been a combination of Dobbins and Gus being out and replacements just not hitting holes with as much power. Just had the offensive line just having a really difficult time even creating holes more often than not for the runners to rush through. And yeah, I think this is the number one key to this game, because whether or not the Ravens are going to be an offense this year that runs more than it passes, I mean, we certainly see that this Ravens offense can thrive being a passing offense, but you still got to run the ball. You still got to be able to have that in your back pocket to lengthen drives, give the defense a break, and keep the defense, your opposing defense, honest. So yeah, I think this is key number one for the Ravens getting back on track, is to figure out how do they get the run game to at least be complementary to the passing game. And this is going to be a tough matchup for it, because the Patriots rushing defense has been among the league's best to start out this year.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, man. One of the things I was kind of thinking of, this is kind of goes beyond maybe the scope of this game a little bit, but it's really a shame, just like the timing of everything of like the last 2 years, kind of how this has been, because, I think we all kind of have wanted to expect Dobbins to have been back this last week. We're hoping that he's close, but we still don't know. But it really got me thinking around just like, we always talk about how offensive line play is really predicated on continuity. Like the more continuity you have, like the better, play you're going to get. When you have a bunch of guys who are sort of playing in positions for the first time, they're going to be growing pains. I feel like I'm almost kind of seeing that more with like running back too. It's like it's all kind of connected, because just from looking at some of the play, from the first 2 weeks from some of the running back positions, like, you'll see like some clips of, some guys not hitting the right holes. I know everybody's kind of looking at the Justice Hill play where they're like, you have this wide sea parting and you didn't cut up field, you just kept going outside. Or there was a play I think we saw last week from Kenyon Drake of, maybe not following his blockers, kind of cutting it inside too soon and running into somebody where he should have kept it outside and kind of ran behind Ricard and the pulling guard. So like there's, it's just a shame that last year the injuries happened when they did, and so the Ravens really couldn't have a great continuity plan. They just had to go get guys to fill in, and that they just weren't good enough to bring back. Because I feel like if maybe some of those guys like Freeman were just like a little bit better, showed us a little bit more, like they could have been an option to bring on this year, and then we wouldn't have had to have these growing pains again of installing a new running back into an offense that they haven't played with and trying to gel with the blockers in front of them and all that stuff. So I know there's a little bit of long of analysis there, but it's just one of those things of I feel like we're just kind of running into the same issues as last year with continuity, and we need to see kind of more of that before we can finally go back to some semblance of a run game.
How remarkably desperate must we be to, for the second year in a row, have our starting running back be a cut player from another team, right? Like Drake was cut, and that is ridiculous. Now, one of the things I'm looking for is if Dobbins is not playing in this game, I do believe we need to give Justice Hill more run. I think he should be the starter, and we're seeing it. He's had the best juice in the run game. I think he pass blocks well. I think he should be at least the third down back consistently, but I would like to see more out of him, because I don't think in this offense there's such a thing as a third down back. I think your third down back is the perfect back to have in every play. So that's kind of what I want to see, but obviously I'd rather see Dobbins out there more. The other thing I want to see, over top of offensive line improvement, which needs to be done as well, is we got to see better production out of the packages that we go out with. Ricard has not been himself this year, and I know that he's showed up with the injury report, and I know that he could have been playing hurt last week, but if you're not helping the team win a football game, you need to get off the field. And that goes to everybody. If you need to get healthy, get healthy. I mean, Harb said the same thing in his presser that he was talking about, we're not bringing people back on board until they're healthy and ready to contribute to a win. And I don't think Ricard was there last week. And he may not even been there the first week, to be frank, because he's been missing blocks all year. And I also think that this team could run better out of 11 personnel. So I'm looking to see if they change their personnel packages. If you looked at the personnel packages last week, there were so many 2Xs, it was driving me nuts. And I just don't think that's getting the best players on the field. And I always harp on, get the best players on the field and run your plays out of that formation. There should be other, you can substitute other people in, don't get me wrong, but your base formation should be your best players. And I don't think they're currently doing that.
Sure. Yeah. And you bring up a great point. As much as I'm sure Greg Roman would love to run, the same packages that we had been running so much in the past, you're right. We don't have a fully healthy Pat Ricard. Nick Boyle can't even get cleared for game day. That's where his health situation is right now. And obviously Ronnie Stanley's not out there. Josh Oliver is there but can't block. The Ravens might have to adjust. And it's kind of early in the season to be doing that, but the reality is, like you're saying, the health of this team is just still not where we want it to be, and maybe it'll get better as the season rolls on. It's going to kind of even itself out with the inevitable injuries that will be sustained for a season run. But yeah, I mean, we've gone through preseason seeing this be an issue, and we've chalked it up to, okay, you just don't have the starters out there. Now we do, at least the starters that are going to be here. So the Ravens are going to have some new wrinkles this upcoming game, and we'll just have to see what they do. I agree with you, Alec. A change in packages could be enough to switch things up. You're talking about bringing in Justice Hill, maybe activate Tyler Beatty, just at least see what he can do. He can't be worse than Drake or Davis, really. At least from a rushing perspective. I don't know about pass blocking. I can't remember what he was able to do in the preseason.
Beatty had a nice pickup in pass blocking. Yeah, remember he got across the formation, picked up the block, and allowed for the touchdown pass? That was a beautiful thing.
Which game was that?
Now you're asking for
not to put you on the spot. I trust you.
It was the second or third, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was the second or third preseason game. I can't recall which.
Got it.
I'm going to say it was the second because I don't think we were there live for it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think another thing to go off of, and this is one of the other keys to the game, is those third down conversions. Currently, the Ravens are 8-23 on the season, and a lot of those non-conversions were in the run game. The run game is not reliable in this offense. It's been killing drives, and it's been getting them in disadvantaged situations. And that's why I was like, never run ever, because the pass game never did that to them. The pass game is what saves them. So, until otherwise, please go pass the ball and fix everything. It's just they go hand in hand. As long as the run game is not reliable, and as long as we keep trying to go back to it, it will shoot us in the foot. And I'm not into shooting us into the foot. I'm into winning football games. I'm not here to find out if it's been fixed. Until we can run, I don't want to run again.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly been bad. I mean, that third down conversion rate is awful. It really showed up in the game against Miami. It's just the time of possession difference is just so dramatically different. I mean, if the Ravens had any part of the run game, take up all the time in the fourth quarter, they don't score 28 points. Right?
Such a good point, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. I've at least from what we've seen so far, I know this isn't necessarily a knock on the Ravens passing attack, but it is something that, that we kind of lean a little bit more toward is, we tried a lot for the big play. Be able to pick up the sort of intermediate to longer sort of passing plays, especially against the Dolphins, just because they play a very aggressive defense, so you can kind of take advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, if we don't have a run game, one substitute for it is kind of an extension of the run game, like the short passing game. And that really hasn't been too much of a strength of the Ravens. I mean, maybe I guess you can kind of argue with Huntley. We played a little bit more of that last year. But at least for Lamar, I'm not sure if that's really, something that we would gravitate toward, just because Lamar kind of has the threat of the run game just by himself. But Yeah, I mean, certainly, I agree with you guys. Something's got to change. The heavy packages that we threw out against the Dolphins, just not effective whatsoever. And I don't know if the answer is like more tackles. It's just better blocking, better, situational matchups of just getting the right guys on the field. Take advantage of what the defense gives you. Because right now we don't have an offense we can assert our will and just run against guys.
Another key to this game is going to be trying to see if the Ravens can get back to week one, what they were able to do. The Ravens were able to bring a lot of an effective rush to the quarterback with simply bringing just bringing interior pressure. Against Miami, that was difficult. We talked in the preview show about how the Ravens might be able to take advantage of what seemingly at that point was a beat-up offensive line. That turned out not to be the case. The Dolphins had no inactives on the offensive line, and they looked quite healthy, thank you very much. And now it only gets harder because while this Patriots offense may not have a lot of playmakers in the vein of like a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle, what they do have is an incredible offensive line, particularly on their interior. It's funny. Back when we were talking about the NFL draft, everyone wanted to dunk on the Patriots for drafting Cole Strange in the end of the first round. Now, whether or not he was a reach, we can debate that for eternity. But he's been very good to start his NFL career from what I've seen with looking at some highlights and some pieces from Patriots media today. The Patriots fans are all over this guy, and he's getting into second-level blocks a lot, watching the film. Very stout in both run blocking and pass protection. He's pairing well with the rest of their line. You got Brown and Wynn on the tackles who are pretty good. I would say that they're slightly weaker than the interior, but still very solid. And the center and guard are very strong there too. So it's going to be a tough task for the Ravens front seven against these guys. It should be fun to watch, but we may have to temper our expectations a bit on expecting the Ravens to be able to just go out with four guys in interior pressure and expect to have similar success that they did against the Jets. I think you're going to need to bring more against a unit that's as strong as this is for the Patriots.
One of the keys to the game, according to Marcus Williams, is getting that pressure against Mac Jones. He was saying that he's played him before, and if you get the pressure against him, he might throw some errant throws, and then if they get the picks, they'll be all good. And he kind of walked off stage, which I thought was really funny. But you're right, Peter. Like, this is maybe the best part of their whole team. Honestly, this team is a very odd build, and their offensive line could be the best. And we all know that a good offensive line makes for a good offense. You can't really have a good offensive line not have a at least moderately good offense, although I guess they're almost trying to prove that they can. But anyways, this is going to be difficult, and I'm curious if Travis Jones will be available this week. I know he's been practicing, and I think he'd be a big boost to that interior rush. I also just think the Miami game was weird on so many levels. Not to get back into all of that, but they were getting the ball out pretty quick in many scenarios. And then when they stopped getting the ball out quick, we started bringing more numbers, and we weren't really executing on it. And I feel like the guys they were bringing numbers with were already gassed because we were out there. The time of possession was so out of whack. Even when we were ahead, the time of possession was always out of whack. And we didn't do any favors in the second half of the game with a longer drive to give them some rest. So in a way, the biggest reason I think that they came back was almost because of our own success, the way that we created our own success. The defense was out there a lot. So that didn't help. So it's interesting how those two pieces almost synchronize, the first two keys of the game. If the running game gets better, we have these longer drives, longer time of possession. We think that the defense can ramp it up for the plays that are out there and maybe get the better pass rush. Because if you looked at the Jets game, it was another Ravens victory. I think we had 38 minutes time of possession, something ludicrous. It was long. So that's I think I would like to track that as a team here. Let's track and see when we have longer time of possession how we felt our D-line played and vice versa. I bet you there's a correlation.
The Ravens lost the time of possession against the Jets.
Whoa!
Yeah, Jets
Really?
Jets had it 32-30.
Oh, man, I must have remembered it backwards.
Not trying to dunk on you. I just wanted to double check your number, and I found out that it was the inverse.
At least it was a little less lopsided. How about that? But it was within the margin of error. Okay, well, adjust your ranks accordingly. I still think it's worth tracking for what it's worth. I still think it's worth tracking.
No, and I think your point stands because I think that's an outlier there. Generally speaking, when you win the time of possession, your defense is going to have a better game, particularly your front seven. You're not going to tax them as much. I think you're 100% right in that statement, independent of whether or not that's what worked against the Jets. So, yeah, I think if we crunch the numbers of all Ravens games in history, your point would be backed up by the numbers. I would be shocked if it wasn't. And yeah, that's basic football, right? That's one of the founding tenets of the game. So it's just one of the things where the Ravens are just going to have to get back to basics with that and try and simplify the game a little bit in that sense.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I mean, two guys that I really want to see take a step up in this game, kind of have a bounce back, Matabuke and Owe. I think Owe has been picked on a lot by some people, and I think even Harbaugh kind of called him out on one of the presser that he needs to be playing a lot better. For a guy, we've been expecting a jump from him, he's been really quiet these past 2 weeks. I mean, he did have a really nice play on defense. I think it was tackling Chase. Was it Chase Edmonds or Mostert? One of them in the backfield. It was a really nice open field tackle that he had from that. But as far as like pass rush, just really have not seen much from him. We really need him to be disruptive. Same as Matabuke. I mean, he had a fantastic week one. A little bit more quiet this game. So those two young players, if they want to be great, like they got to bounce back. And I know sacks will be difficult, but pressures count. We'll certainly, pressures, quarterback hits, anything like those will make plays in other ways. It doesn't have to be sacks, but they need to have more of an impact than what they had week 2.
Mac was not sacked last week. He was only hurried 3 times. I'm curious to see how they try to play against us. We have different playbooks so far. We've seen a little bit of everything. People trying to get the ball out fast, being worried about the pass rush. We've also seen defying the pass rush and saying, we don't think you're going to get there, and seeing if they can attack further down the field. So I'm curious what their approach will be. They don't quite have the wide receiver playmakers that make me worry about extended plays. It's not the Yak Monsters we played last week. So I think it'll be a little different, but I am definitely interested in seeing the personnel they bring out. If they do 2 tight end sets, because they invested heavily in their tight end room last year, just kind of see how they think they can best match up against the Ravens defense.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Of the pass catchers on this team, the only one I think that you really are looking at as a potential guy to break a big play from anywhere on the field would be Nelson Aguilar. And even him, I mean, this is what his either third or fourth team, and there's a reason for that. The guy has potential, but it's just never really been able to put it together to be one of the top complete wide receivers in this league. And he has started out as the top receiver for this New England Patriots passing attack. But if you look after him there, Jacoby Myers has almost twice as many targets on the season as Aguilar, although only 12 more receiving yards. Myers is going to be the blanket, check down guy, possession receiver. He's reliable. And then outside of that, though, everyone else is pretty much disappointing on this offense from receiving perspective. Kendrick Bourne has not shown the flashes they showed last year. Jonnu Smith has yet to find his footing in New England after a promising start to his career in Tennessee. Hunter Henry has been non-existent in the receiving game. Devontae Parker, shouldn't say a lot, but there was some chatter that he could be a red zone threat for this team over the offseason. So far, he has 1 catch for 9 yards so far this season, 0 touchdowns. So you look at this group, it's kind of a mishmash of guys who were cast off from other places for never really living up fully to their hype. And, it's a unit. It is a unit that if the Ravens have a bad day, the Patriots can use these guys effectively enough to get a win. So, you have to respect them in that regard. But certainly, yes, when you're talking about looking at a bounce back performance, this is one of the best wide receiver corps to have that matchup against. You still got to execute, but this, comparatively speaking, is a step down in competition than what the Ravens had to line up against last week.
Or even the week before. Like, I think Elijah Moore and we saw Garrett Wilson break out last week. You know, they're more of a threat, Corey Davis, than these particular wide receivers. I will say they're a very balanced team. You know, you look at it, Mac Jones has only attempted 65 passes all year. They've run the ball, doing some quick math in my head, it's like about 50 times with their main backs. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at. It's pretty balanced for the NFL. Obviously, a little bit more pass, but not terribly much. I think if we want to keep going with that conversation point of the defensive line, we saw that the offensive line's been able to create holes for the running game. We saw that the running game was kind of effective for Miami, particularly in some key spots. And I'm curious if Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris can get anything going against our team. I think that they'll definitely try to start that way. I think that's kind of their DNA, is to try to get the ball running and then trigger the pass off of that. But I don't know. Like, I think Damian and Ramondre are the kinds of backs the Ravens can contain very well with the personnel that they have. So I think that we might be able to stop the run pretty effectively.
I mean, either way, I think it's going to be a challenge for the Ravens. You know, I think we called this out in the Miami game, but I mean, they struggled a little bit, just letting up some chunk run plays in certain situations. You know, against the Jets, I think they had a little bit more success, but honestly, I mean, Michael Carter overall, I thought had a fairly good game. It was Breece Hall was a little bit more disappointing, but he was still kind of effective in the passing game. Yeah, I mean, certainly falls on defensive line, linebackers if they're in. Another guy kind of pick on week 2. A lot of people have kind of been picking on him as of the last 2 years. Patrick Queen. I think these guys they have to execute better, be able to be in the right positions of identifying the gaps that they need to control and just making plays, making tackles. A lot of missed tackles, just guys getting hands on people but not actually stopping anybody or bringing them down. A lot of fundamental stuff that just needs to get better. Stuff from I agree with you guys from an opponent. This is a great time for the Ravens to correct. I think it's very doable. But, you got to get better at those fundamentals, because if not, I could see a scenario in which, New England just runs us over and then, they dominate time of possession and, we can't get on the field and, their defense is good enough to be able to stop, Lamar if they can get him off the field, particularly given our third down conversion rate is just not good. So there is a scenario where New England can have the pieces to beat us. But it's also if the Ravens start executing a little bit better in all these phases that we talked about, they could win this game too.
I agree with that, and I think you bring up a great point. Again, you look at the Dolphins game, and Chris, I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's going to come down to fundamentals, because we know with how good the Patriots' offensive line is that these running backs are going to have holes. They're going to be able to create them. So then it's just going to come down to, are the Ravens front seven, are they fundamentally tackling? Are they hitting the right gaps? Are they wrapping up when the ball carrier comes to them? And, because if they don't, I think you bring up a great point. The Patriots could use this rushing attack to lengthen drives and kind of, slowly chip away at the defense. And that's kind of what Miami did early on in that game. The Ravens were letting up a lot of short stuff, despite the fact they were able to get off some turnovers and really keep the Dolphins out of the end zone for the most part. But just slowly the Dolphins just continued to chip away, and the Ravens' fundamentals got sloppier as the game went on, and that allowed the offense to hang in enough until they were able to really get themselves going at full strength. And while we haven't seen it from this Patriots offense yet this season, there were a couple games last year where Mac Jones was really able to let the ball rip. If we look back at the 2021 season for him, sure, he's against lesser opponents, but he still had 3 touchdown games against Cleveland and Jacksonville last year. Some big passing games in matchups against Tennessee and Dallas. this guy, while certainly there are some shortcomings in his game at this stage in his career, if you give him the right situation, he can perform. And, we saw what can happen last week. We just let up a career game from Tua. It's certainly not something we were expecting going into this game. So, yeah, it makes for boring analysis, but I think you're 100% right. Defensive fundamentals are going to be a huge key here in the Ravens, between the Ravens having an easy victory or one where they're going to sweat it out, or hopefully not, but possibly, let another win slip through their fingers.
Yeah, the interior linebackers are a big focus point for me, and one of the last keys of the game I had, just because we had the exact same script for Queen, a great game 1 of the year, a very poor game 2, getting lost in second level, and just letting passes get behind him that shouldn't have happened. We're not ever expecting him to be man-on-man with Waddle, but we are expecting him to be in the way so they don't have the throwing lane to get it to Waddle. And sometimes, he didn't know what was behind him. And same thing, man. Josh Bynes, dude. Oh, it pains me to say it, dude, but I'm not so sure he still has it, man. I think time might have caught up to him. I was watching the film of him, and it didn't look like the same old Josh Bynes even out there. So the reinforcements are gone. Ross is on IR, not season ending, but they said, we'll see where he's at in 4 weeks. So we can't use him. We got Malik Harrison, but he's kind of our pseudo outside linebacker, given the depth problems we have there. So it's a very interesting problem. Good that we kept 5 of them now, I guess. I think Welsh is going to find the field a little bit more. But honestly, when I say all that, I'm like, get Stone on the field, get Hamilton on the field, get Ardarius on the field, Stevens, get me any of these tweener bodies on the field instead. I am kind of tired of the inside linebackers being the Achilles heel. I'd rather be lighter, dare them to run, and step up in that regard. I believe in those players to stop the run. I really do. So maybe that's ignorance on my part, but I would much rather have a lighter personnel that gives me more confidence in the pass game and figure out the run game.
Yeah, maybe. Either option, you're dealing with some growing pains, right? Some of the guys you mentioned, even them, some of them, Hamilton didn't have the best games from them either, right? In coverage. So, there's going to be growing pains either way, I think. I think with Queen, it's just him being a third-year player. There's a little bit more of an expectation of who we have, but that's not it's not always true. Infamously, we like to talk about Bowser and that Peter didn't believe in him until year 4, year 5, and then all of a sudden,
that's true.
Okay,
yep.
We understand your value now. But yeah, it's certainly bleak. I mean, the Ravens have talked to Blake Martinez. He used to play for the Packers, for the Giants, I think most recently. He would be an option inside linebacker if they do decide to sign him. I don't mind it, but it's, he might be a little bit of an upgrade, maybe over Bynes, but I don't know if he would be significantly better than Queen at this point. We'll see what happens the next couple of days, but he could be another option. I would prefer him out there than more snaps from Welsh. Just from the snaps that we've kind of seen with Welsh in the preseason, I think we just get more of the same from him, to be honest, especially in passing situations. But you never know. The Ravens will decide what they want to do with that situation, but signs are down right now for this position group for sure. For me, it's one of those it's not a new problem. I've been dealing with this since 2019, since Mosley left. So, on one hand, it's kind of old news. It's almost kind of a little tiring of talking about it continually because we're kind of having the same issues. There are ways to get around it. There are ways to kind of mitigate it. I think the answer for me is just we're going to see how it happens. But I agree it could be an option to bring on a lot of these safeties. That's where our depth is. That's where we're, we have a lot more players we're excited about there. So I think that could be an option, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating that we're in, year 4 of trying to, search around the streets for what vet, inside linebacker is available to help this defense. And I know we've talked about in the past that interior linebacker doesn't have the same value to defense as it has in seasons past with the NFL moving so much to spread formations, but it still has its place on the defense, and you still need guys who can play the position. And Bynes has been that guy for us the past few seasons of just the coach on the field, and he still is that. But yeah, I agree with Alec. The first 2 games have not been the Josh Bynes that we have come to expect over the past couple seasons. Martinez, he's available. He's been a solid linebacker in his career. He's available right now because of he's coming off an ACL injury, I'm supposing. So the question there is, and I'm sure the Ravens are going through this right now, if they sign him, is he even going to be healthy enough to step in and provide at least depth? There's that there. Something on his side is that he's younger than Bynes. He's 28, I believe I'm seeing. So there's that, I guess. But yeah, it's really not a great spot for the Ravens to be in right now. That said, again, like we said, just after week 1, we were talking all about how good of a game Patrick Queen had against the Jets. Yes, he still had some missed tackles in there, but for the most part, he did a good job with his assignments, was hitting gaps in the run game in particular. We'll see what happens. It might just be that Patrick Queen that's just who he is. He's just going to be a roller coaster guy. There's going to be certain matchups that play better to his skill set, other matchups where teams will have receivers that can really take advantage of his limitations in the pass coverage, and Rams just going to have to scheme around that, put him in situations where he can be a game wrecker, and then find contingencies for spots where he's not. So with all that said, I am interested to see how he plays against the Patriots because, again, I think this offense is a little more in line with how he would match up well than the Dolphins were. I think this is more closer to a matchup against the Jets as far as, the pace of this team. Again, pocket passer. I guess Tua was a pocket passer too, but he definitely had more mobility than Flacco did in week 1. But at the same time, again, how is Queen going to do against this offensive line when on run blitzes and in those cases? So yeah, it's certainly a situation we're hoping that the Ravens can patch eventually, but going to be something to watch for in this game.
I want to turn it back around to the linebackers for the Patriots, led by Judon.
Yes. Very excited for this matchup.
Yeah, he's off to a great start. We got to see our offensive line neutralize him, not let him get a sack against his former quarterback. And also they have other players on their team that you got to keep an eye on. Josh Uche, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He was actually the player picked at the 60th pick of the draft that we traded to the Patriots to go back in, I believe it was the 2020 draft because we got Dobbins, and then I was hoping we get Mims at the 60, and he got sniped at 59, and then we traded out of the 60 pick because I was convinced they were trying to get Mims there too, and that's why they trade back. But I guess we avoided a landmine there. But yeah, you have these linebackers, and I'm curious to see the chess match that Lamar Jackson has with them. What I saw last game that was a huge growth point is that they got to the line so much faster, which I was really great to see because I did a whole concern episode with Ken McCusick about it the week before, being like, they got to get to the line faster. And not only did they get to the line faster, but you saw Lamar calling checks, identifying blitzes, corner blitzes even, and then hitting the player there and all the good stuff. I thought his recognition last game was so good. And we were calling him MVP. We were talking about how good of a game it was and how overshadowed it was. And that was a piece that we forgot to talk about last week, is how much better they were at getting to the line, communicating assignments, and executing. So I want to see them build on that and see if that kind of behavior, hurry-ups to keep personnel on the field, checks, audibles, etc., can neutralize the pass rush and just any kind of chicanery coming from the New England defense.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about when we were discussing the offense how the offense probably isn't enough to win this game for the Patriots. Their defense can be. We saw that in 2020. Sure, there was the bad weather, but it was also how this defense played the Ravens and what they did to take away the consistent big plays from this offense. And this linebacking core is no joke. It's one of the best in the league. Judon has been one of the rare players, along with Sedarius Smith, who's left Baltimore and elevated his game. He was an absolute beast last season and has just continued to do that this year in these first 2 games. A particular play against the Patriots made against the Steelers last week that kind of shows the danger that Judon can still bring in the defense. He was rushing the right side of the defense, and Trubisky scrambles out to his left. Judon notices and is able to go for opposite side of the field and at least tackle Trubisky behind the line of scrimmage. I can't remember if it was a sack or not. Trubisky might have gotten the ball out. But, Trubisky is not Lamar. He does not have his speed, but Trubisky still actually has decent speed and mobility for a quarterback. So that's a very athletic play for a player like Judon to make there. And, the rest of their linebacking core is very solid as well. This is a unit that could give the Ravens offensive line some issues, especially considering that we still don't know if Ronnie Stanley is going to suit up. Now, like we said earlier in the show, the Ravens offensive line, for all the trouble they had defending the run, held up extremely well in pass protection. Now, part of that, again, like Alec was saying, was because of the quickness of the offense and getting to the line, getting the ball out. So that'll be an interesting test. Will the Ravens offensive line be able to maintain keeping Lamar as upright and clean in the pocket as they were able to against Miami, against another strong defensive opponent? I don't know if I'd say if New England's defense is better than Miami's is, because Miami has a lot of talent on their defensive side of the ball as well. But it'll certainly at least be a comparable matchup for this offensive line on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm curious if Greg Roman is going to try and maybe put more on the plate of some of our wide receiving options. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the last week or so, I think the Ravens have still tried to take some deep shots. Maybe against Miami, they had a few more of those really large chunk plays that kind of inflated some of the numbers. But I'd be curious in those second and long, third and long situations, are they going to try and target Mark Andrews, knowing that it's Bill Belichick? He knows that Mark Andrews is like the key to the Ravens offense. Are they going to try and feed him the ball and take advantage of just his ability to just beat almost any matchup? Or are they going to try and maybe take a little bit more favorable matchups to some of the secondary receiving options? Obviously we've seen a little bit from Duvernay. He's really stepped up these first few weeks. It sounds like he might be practicing soon. Harb said that he didn't show any concussion symptoms, but I don't remember if he was technically in the protocol.
He's still there, yeah.
He's still there? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he might have a chance. But if not, guys like Likely, Prochet, if he finally, is able to come back healthy. I actually don't know if he was practicing today, but yeah, I'd just be curious to see if we can get some of these other guys involved, or if we're going to try and, feed Andrews, feed Bateman.
I think a matchup where the Ravens might be able to have an advantage in this game, if they're able to give Lamar the same protection that they had last week, is really in this secondary. Now, from a safety perspective, back there the Patriots have Devin McCourty. They have Kyle Duggar, although Duggar got hurt against Pittsburgh, and I don't believe he played in the second half, so I think he's questionable to play in this game. If he's out, I think Jabril Peppers is there and would take his spot. But cornerback is a position of weakness on this defense. The Patriots lost J.C. Jackson in free agency. I think he's with the Chargers now. And the guys that they have replaced him, I honestly don't know too much about him, but in watching the film of the Patriots against the Steelers, I wasn't terribly impressed with them. Mills in particular didn't look terribly great. He did get an interception in the game, but that was more so just being in the right spot at the right time on a play that either McCourty or Duggar, I can't remember which, blew up, and ball just basically fell into his arms. Actually, according to PFF, Mills is currently the worst ranked cornerback by their metric, for whatever that means. Some people I know have differing opinions on how much stock you want to put into those rankings, but yeah, I think that this could be another good spot for Bateman. Maybe get Demarcus Robinson involved a little more too, to have some mismatches here that the Ravens could take advantage of. Now, again, like I said, the safeties here they're going to try and help out. That's what their scheme's going to do. But if you got them one-on-one, this seems like a matchup that the Ravens should be able to win with their wide receivers.
Absolutely. Hoping for a big game out of the wide receivers. Definitely want to see Duvernay get back on the field. He didn't practice, obviously, due to the concussion. And then Prochet had limited practice due to a groin injury, which, by the way, the Ravens have a lot of groin injuries right now. Isaiah Likely, groin injury, limited practice. Marlon Humphrey, groin injury, did not practice. Ay. What's up with
Stop
that?
eating Taco Bell, guys. Straining too hard. Anyways.
Well, the other interesting, I guess, player injuries is that Travis Jones was a full participant with the knee injury, and Demarion Williams limited with an ankle. Quad injury for Stevens was limited, and Ronnie ankle limited. Those, I guess, were the most notable injuries. Other people had just rest days, not injury related. And of course, Lamar's right elbow, the great right elbow controversy. Everyone wanted to ask him and Harbaugh about it, and he's like, "I'll be out there. It's fine." He's like, "I didn't throw today because I'm going to be throwing a lot on Sunday."
Yeah. I don't know. I just laugh that you put Stanley out there with an ankle. It's like, I thought, like, do you have a new injury pop up that we didn't know about?
Oh,
no,
Stanley.
Same old Ronnie. Yeah. I don't even want to talk about that anymore.
Let's not. Do you want to do some bold predictions?
Oh,
yeah,
man.
why not?
I just got to say one thing. I think that one way we can get Ronnie Stanley back on the field is to reopen Jeepers. I think Ronnie's a couple years younger than us, so I'm sure he went back to Jeepers parties in the day. Maybe that's why he's not playing. He's just holding out for Jeepers. This is a not very well advertised protest to get Jeepers back. I got a son now. He doesn't know about Jeepers. Let's do this. Let's do this for Ronnie Stanley, my son. Let's get Jeepers back open. That's my takeaway from all this.
Never in a million years did I think the Ravens were going to lose against the Dolphins based on what was happening earlier in the game, and never in 16 million years did I suspect Jeepers would be such a prominent figure in this one winning pod episode.
Hashtag save Jeepers. Let's get it trending.
Oh my God. I have a bold prediction I would like to put out for everybody. Let's is the definition of good juju, putting it out there. OA, 1 sack, 2 pressures.
I like it. I don't know if I'd say this is a bold prediction, but I'll give it this. I'm going to say that the Ravens keep the Patriots out of the end zone.
I think it's pretty bold. That's just hard to do.
It is hard to do, and this defense has some injuries. So,
is it bold to say that Marcus Williams will get another interception?
Honestly, man, 3-peat. It's like I think it's plenty bold. I mean, it's just hard,
I mean, yeah. He's at, is it 3, 4? Wait, no, 3.
3.
Right?
Could have been 4.
He's at 3 for the season. Yeah, it could have been 4. Yeah, he's having a fantastic start. I know we didn't really talk about him much this episode, but yeah, he's been great in the turnover department. Sorely needed after last year. So I'm going to say gets another one off Mac Jones.
Huge difference maker. Chris, what is your score prediction?
Oh gosh, I really hope this one doesn't go over. But not in a million of years have expected a 42-38 loss last week. That's way too high. I'm gonna say this one's gonna be a lower scoring. How about 27-13 Ravens?
I'm not gonna lie. I am nervous about this game being a trap game. The Patriots, they have talent on defense. Like we said, their offensive line is good enough to dominate our front seven if they're not on their game. That being said, I think that the Ravens will come into this game with a renewed focus after what happened last week. You don't suffer that big of a defeat with that much of a lost lead and have as much talent as this team has and come out flat the next game. At least I don't think so. So I am going to say that the Ravens win this game 20-12, although I will say I am nervous about this one.
You could have added a 1 to it. You would have had 21.
Could have.
Do it. You missed it. Come on. What are you doing?
I don't think the Ravens are gonna be perfect on their drives though. I think, with these third down issues we're having, I think we're gonna see a couple field goals in this game.
You could have had 2 safeties and a field goal. Come on, man.
Of course. Somebody passed.
Or just every week I could just make the game prediction 21-12, and then I'd always have it because we're always so right on these predictions anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we didn't mention it, but Alec and I both got our bowl predictions last week.
That's right.
Alec,
You guys did.
With the old reliable 100 yards and a TD for Andrews, he got that. And for me, although kind of fell into it, the longest offensive play of the game was a run play, but it was Lamar, not any of the running backs.
So I think the Ravens win this game. I think they win it actually pretty handily. I just don't believe in the offensive weapons of the Patriots. And I think that McDonald is going to put the team in better situations to succeed. I do think he had a very bad fourth quarter calling plays. One thing we really didn't talk about, because I think it was so immediate, is that one play on 3rd and 6 that went to Tyreek for the big touchdown when everyone was blaming Hamilton for not being in position. I think it failed on several levels, right? First of all, Hamilton was in the box showing apparent pressure, and even if his assignment was to bail back, it's Tyreek Hill. He was never going to get there, right? So that was bad. And if you see that and it's the wrong alignment, like he shouldn't have been there at all, you got to call timeout. We had timeouts. It was a 3rd down. It was totally acceptable to call timeouts because you don't like what you see. So I think it was a failure on all fronts. I'm not trying to excuse anybody or lay blame, but I think we need to keep it simpler against even this lesser opponent. Let's not get too crazy. Let's not do anything wild. Just play your assignments, execute, and you'll come out ahead. This team is not scary offensively, and I think our defense can feast. So therefore, I'm going to go with your prediction, Peter. I'm going to boost up the Ravens and their scoring potential. I'm going to say they score another 31 points, or like my old prediction last time, but only 9 points for the Patriots.
I like it.
I like whenever the Ravens win. I don't care how it happens. Well, that wraps it up, guys. Give us your predictions in the comments on Twitter. We really appreciate you guys listening. Where's our Twitter? At One Winning Pod, of course. Check that out. Check out the YouTube channel for another History Corner and bets this week. We're really excited about that aspect of the content this year. And yeah, thanks so much. Reach out, onewinningpod@gmail.com if email is your thing. And we'll be back after a hopeful Ravens win and after filling our bellies at the Greek Festival. Right, guys?
That's
We're
right.
going to go to the Greek Festival?
That's right.
2504 Cup Hill Road. Be there, be square.
Try the souvlaki.
That's where I'll be watching the game. Yeah, try the souvlaki.